welcome to Through the Mist with me, your host Owen. This is a void and verse theory podcast where we look at the law and try to understand how it all works. In this episode, we'll be looking at magical items. Here we are, back at it again, eh guys? Whoop, aid, doop, aid, doop, aid, we're back at it again. Welcome back to the Mistbusters. Welcome back to the Mistbusters. Welcome back to this month's episode. Hope everyone is having a good month. I'm having a mixed one. But who really cares about me? You're here for Percy Jackson, aren't you? Hey. So before I get into the magical items of it all, I had some responses in different places about last month's episode. And these all happen to be from Instagram, and that Instagram is at @through_mist. So make sure you go follow that, and you can comment on things, and maybe you'll get shouted out here. You will get shouted out here. And also remember, there is also an email address if you want it to be a little bit more private. That's through.t.mist@gmail.com. If there's anything you don't want said, but you still want to write it to me, you can do that. Just make sure you mention, do not say this, and I won't say it. That's how this works. It's very easy. If you don't want it read out loud, tell me, and it won't be. Yes, so some things from last month's episode. First of all, thank you to Robert at the Dan Meme page for this wonderful interaction that I had with some people. They did a meme regarding Greek heroes not being immortal, and we got some comments. So one guy, ahoy guy, questioned in the comments of the said meme, if they can become immortal through memory, then why isn't Achilles still alive? And would that make Percy immortal? It's a good question. I haven't quite thought this one through, so I did a little bit of thinking about it, did a little bit of research, and got back to them and said it's all about how to do with how they were worshipped. The Roman emperors had the imperial cult, which we talked about last time, which treated them as gods, or at least immortal in some way. But with my quick amount of research I did then, and a bit of stuff I had previously, it looked like the Greeks don't treat them as heroes and have that same immortal status as the Roman emperors did. So they were remembered, but they never really got to immortal because of those memories. They were remembered as heroes, not as gods. And then you got outliers like Hercules, who became a god upon death. And then a wonderful other human, Sunlit Trash, replied back, which I think I did try to mention this in the episode, but these people I don't think actually listened to the episode. But but it's good because you might have had these same questions, so I'm gonna answer them now. And I did try to mention this episode, but I didn't explain it very well. But this guy was very, very good. I'll read what they said. Curiously enough, the Greeks did the same thing. It was in fact the Greeks that started the idea of a hero cult with offerings meant for a hero were left at their grave, and sometimes they even built temples for them. This was later expanded into the Hellenistic times to encompass kings and generals as well. The Ptolemies, and even Alexander himself all ventured as hero gods. The Imperial Romans later ran with this idea. So yes, that is what I think I tried to mention before, how the Imperial cult of Rome came from the Greeks and this sort of thing, which is fun. So go follow Robert at Dan Meme page on Twitter and Instagram, and for my stuff, Instagram. For all the other podcasts that he does memes for, he puts them both up on Twitter and Instagram, so you can follow him. He also has a podcast which I have featured on at Into the Ride and Verse, so you can. And he's currently going through all the Kane Chronicles stuff. He's on a break at the moment, but if you want to catch up with the Kane Chronicles books, now's a great time to do so. So yes, that was Robert's thing, but I also did my usual putting out of things, and one of the posts I put out was mortal to God. Was the underworld bypassed or not? And I got a couple of responses on this from the story, Instagram story. I realised after I had posted it and got these responses back that my brain obviously was thinking about the last episode and specifically talking about the Roman emperors, I didn't make that very clear in the post because my brain was already Roman Emperor heavy. So there's just some thoughts that people came back with. Lucy from the last episode, welcome back. Hello. You responded. Hello again. They said, I think that maybe in some way that Percy was given the option to become a god at the end of Tolo. They might be given the choice either after some great achievement or after they die. They are given a choice to become a god or not. However, maybe not in the case of the Roman emperors, as they escaped through the doors of the dead, I think. Well, as we talked last time, clearly they hadn't listened to the episode yet either. I'm just messing with people, but yeah, so as we talked about last time, the Roman emperors have been alive as emperors basically since Roman times, as emperor gods since Roman times. And it does seem that with the Greek heroes and stuff, that this, like, almost asking of to becoming a god happened almost upon their death. So Hercules being a good example. And then there's this, there's this fun little response that I got from at Seaweed Brain Podcast. Go listen to them. I've been in one of their episodes as well, so you get a little bit of Owen. And because I just know it's on Instagram, it's also Erica, and she just wonderfully said, "No way Zeus let his angel Hercules go to the underworld and chip a nail." So just a fun little response there. We can all have some fun. Yes, I think those are the rambles. Those are the rambles. They are the rambles. Is what they call these. They're rambles. Sorry if I'm a bit sniffly. I'm going to try and cut out most of the sniffs, but if in case one does pop through, I am very sorry. I have a slightly blocked nose. Right then, magical items. Yes, magical items. Hello, magical items. So, you may recall from episode 12, aka, sorry Robert, the Daddy Kane episode, I mentioned talking about this, and we were talking about shape-shifting, and we were also talking about shape-shifting, how I might do an episode later on that. I mentioned some magical items and stuff like that, so we're just going to go through some magical items that I have questions about, or have thoughts about, and how they work given the rules. Going to look at how they work within them. We're going to look at how they work within the rules of the universe given to us, along with some others. What? That's terrible. That was a terrible bullet point, Owen. Ugh. Anywho, I'm not going to go through every single one now, obviously. Right, I already have one set of weapons, of magical items. They are weapons that could be in a future magical items episode. So I will put an extra Instapo out this month. So there'll be 3. Woohoo, 3? What? And you can comment on that. Any magical items that you would like to see in a Magical Items 2.0 episode. Remember to do that. But first of all, let's go through what I have come up with. Music. We're gonna talk about some weapons. Let's start with everyone's favourite, everyone's golden weapon, Riptide, also known as Percy's sword. Riptide was forged in the fires of Mount Etna and cooled in the river Leith. That's the forgetful river. It originates from Phione, who was some ancient to the Poseidon water thing. I didn't write what she was, but more importantly, that's given to Zoe. Shout out. Who has it disguised as a hair clip, who then gives it to Hercules, who then, I believe, throws it in the ocean, and then it slowly wangles its way through people and time and life and all that jazz, and it makes its way to Chiron or Chironi, and then, well, it makes it to Poseidon, who then gives it to Chiron, Chironi, and then gives it to Percy, and we have a Riptide in Percy's possession. What do you do? Yes. So current in its current state, Riptide is disguised as a ballpoint pen. If you remove the lid, it turns into a sword. If you place the lid on hilt, it turns back into a pen that you can write with. If you put a lid at the tip of the sword, it turns back into a normal pen. Another fun thing about Riptide is that it will return to the owner's pocket in pen form if dropped. And this amount of time from dropping it, losing it, or throwing it away, besides the one demonstration at Camp Half-Blood on Half-Blood Hill at the start of the first book, seems to be a constant amount of time, and it is a relatively extended period of time. It's probably like 5-10 seconds-ish that it will sit there without you doing anything for it to come back in the pocket, because he does, multiple occasions in the book, go, Riptide should have reappeared in my pocket by now. So he has a rough idea, and it seems to be relatively constant, but not perfectly constant. So that's Riptide, and most of the magical stuff is whatever. But there's some things that I'm going to talk about a few more weapons now, and you'll see a common theme about these weapons, and we're going to discuss that in a bit. Next up, we have the Aegeus replica, also known as Thales' shield. It's a replica of the shield used by Athena and Zeus. It has a face of Medusa on it, or an imprint of the face of Medusa on it. In this case, it's like a copy of Medusa's face. It originates. This is a fact that probably most of you don't know. It originates from the house mentioned in the Diary of Luke Castellan. Luke finds the shield in bracelet form because it is disguised as a bracelet when not in use, as a defensive weapon. Um, and Luke figures out how it works. You tap it, you say its name, it goes, and then, scary thing. And it is also what attracted Luke and Thalia to the house and loads of other demigods to said house, where they get trapped, where they get killed. It's also where that house is also where Annabeth's nice. That's also where Annabeth's knife originates. And the only person I know that would have talked about this book is the Bear Stam Camp, I think. Yeah, I think that'd be the only one that I know of that would have talked about this book. So I'm sure you can find their episode on it, and that would explain the book more if you want. Go have a look for them. And it does some of the mimicry things of the original Aegeus shield, such as scaring off enemies, because that's Medusa's face. It is so horrifying it turns you to stone. It is a scary thing, or is it? Or maybe it's not so horrifying it turns you to stone. Maybe it turns you to stone, therefore it's horrifying. It's like a catch-22. Which came first, the ugliness or the fact it turns you to stone? Hey! Um, Next up in my list of fun swords and shields, we have Ivilius. There was multiple ways that this could be said, I saw now, but it is Jason's coin, from the first Heroes of Olympus book, the first two book. I think most people seem to hate. It can turn into both a sword, a gladius, or a lance. And if it's gladius, it's a sword if it lands heads up, or a lance if it lands tails up. Just some fun facts about the coin. It's made from imperial gold, like both weapons. On the head side, when it is in coin form, it's Julius Caesar's head, because the head has a head on it. And the tail side is a double-headed axe in coin form as well. And now the final weapon, I'm just going to dump some information on you about, is Jack. Everyone knows Jack? Yeah, thought so. Round of applause for Jack. Round of applause for Jack. Jack, aka the Sword of Summer, aka Magnus's sword. I can be bothered to go that deep into the lore of the Sword of Summer. So it originates from Frey. He traded it for some information about a girl, and then some things happen, and it gets handed down generation because it's like a human, I think, gets it, or a mortal that gets handed down generation. Somehow ends up in Boston Harbor. Magnus gets it. The one final thing about it is that one day Sir shall kill Frey by wielding said Sword of Summer. So one day at Ragnarok, Magnus will lose Jack. Their lifelong friendship shall be over, and they shall die. Here to Magnus. Yes, this is also the only known weapon that can talk. Talkity talk. It like glows and like Panny doesn't have eyes though, so you can't do sign languages. When it is disguised, this is what we're getting into really. It is a white runestone with a black symbol of the Freya Fu rune on it, and it is attached to a golden chain. It's just basically the rune of Frey, black little rune of Frey. Like I always imagine it like a white domino, but with the rune of Frey on it instead. And it's attached to a golden chain, and uh, it is attached to the chain magnetically, so you pull it off and it goes sword, and then you put the hilt to the chain and it goes runestone. I was about to say like magnet, but that yeah. So is it actually magnetic? Because I mean, if it's a golden chain, it can't be a pure golden chain, otherwise it wouldn't be magnetic. And then what is actually really find out what the sword is actually made out of. So it's probably like magically magnetic, where it's not actually magnetic. It's not the science of magnetism happening. It's more like the theory of magnetism happening with other metals and elements. Yeah, because why not? It's a bit of fun, eh? So, what did all of these have in common? What did all of these have in common? That is the question that we're going to talk about. And the thing they have in common is that they all have a dormant form. Yes, a dormant form. I'm sorry, guys. I've been very. So if this is a bit of a high energy episode for you, it's cool, get it, but I'm probably going to keep this high energy going because I am here. This is the energy level that I want you to come and meet me and have a smile on your face while you're listening. So, yes, they all have in common a dormant form. I keep on dancing while I'm talking. This is why I'm going like this. I found you with no like Tommy in it. Boo! Go. Yes, I'll probably. We'll look that up. Uh, yes. So, recenter, recenter, recenter. There's going to be a big chunk cut out here. It's fine. They all have in common that they have a dormant form. I need to stick to what I'm thinking about. Don't go diverging here, right? So, the question is what is their dormant form in relationship to their weapon form? So, going into the dormant form is like equivalent to putting them in their sheath. Just fun facts about sheaths, swords and blades and other such things. You can also be known as scabbards. Difference between a sheath and a scabbard. The scabbard is rigid, so you can like whack someone with a scabbard and it won't bend. Whereas a sheath is a bit more flexible, so it goes if you wiggle it about. And you can kind of infer this if we're using Jack as like a baseline for this, because Jack has like thousands of. Jack's a sentient sword. He does his own thing. He floats around. He's quite magic, really. And but the wielder must eventually take on the energy that Jack has used to do whatever he's been up to, and to do that, you put him in pendulum form or sheath him. So that's kind of how we can infer why we could say this. But one thing about this sheathing is that unlike putting it in a sheath, where it just like is a protective place to keep it, the dormant versions or the disguised versions of said weapons don't follow standard physics rules. One of the big ones that they break right off the bat is conservation of mass. So from this, and conservation of mass being that the amount of mass you put into one end of a thing must equal the amount of mass at the end of the thing. So quite a good example of where this is like shown is the Lost Hero, Leo and Fetus. He puts him into suitcase mode, but there's like, I mean, it'll be extremely hard to put him into suitcase mode anyway, but it's a little more feasible Because when Leo tries to move it, it still is the weight of fetus. It's just a lot more dense. Like all fetus components are in suitcase mode, and it is very heavy. But the weight and the length, well, this doesn't seem to hold true for the pen, the sword, the pen, the coin, the bracelet, and other such things. It does seem that weight, conservation of mass, isn't held. So it's not like the mist is just hiding these objects. So it's not like it's putting a veil over them and going, this is not a sword, this is a pen. This is not a sword, this is a pen. No, it's going, this is a pen. This is a pen. You can even kind of infer this when Percy writes with the pen. Or is it Annabeth that writes? One of the two. But they write with the pen. You can infer that it is, in fact, a pen, and not just I find you when I like Tommy in it. Pushing my patience to the limit, singing la la la. I don't wanna admit it. If you die, I'm feeling good. Look at my gun and the yo yo yo. Got my drink and my cock. Why don't you just go goggy? Oh we oh. Yes. Where was I? Oh yeah, I just talked about conservation mass. So, you can think of this in the more traditional idea of shapeshifting. And a great example for this is Beast Boy. Beast Boy! And really Frank, but, Frank's a different... Frank's part of this universe. We're not going to use Frank as an example for swords. We use someone else from a different universe. Beast Boy. Beast Boy, you know him from Teen Titans and other such things. Young Justice, the comics, obviously. But Beast Boy, when he turns into an elephant, he becomes heavier than when he was a fly. So that's the idea of his mass isn't being conserved at all. He is gaining mass, he's losing mass, he's creating... reasons for how he does it is probably you could come up with the different reasons for how these are doing, but that idea of mass not being constant throughout, Beast Boy is a good example. One other thing that we can also infer with these dormant versions is that they can most probably change to the user's requirements. Obvious example, Riptide used to be a hair clip. Somehow in its long life it made it to a ballpoint pen. And then Jack and Magnus literally have a discussion. Jack isn't talking yet at this point in time about what Jack could turn into. He can turn into anything. They just settle for a pendant. That's the word I was looking for earlier. So, this is how it works. And then, so I know we're not really getting anywhere. We're just figuring out that these are physically transforming weapons. They physically are changing. And I guess now the final question for these is, why can these transform, but other weapons can't? And I think we kind of have to kind of look at other things that we know, other things we get to see built, and work out why they do what they do. And I think a great place to start is Magnus Chase in those books. And they literally make things from impossible things. And I think this is kind of it's in the way that these have been constructed, whether they were imbued with magic, or whether they were built out of, like Jack again, is a contradiction of a sword. It is best used if you let it go, is like one of the big things. You aren't supposed to wield Jack. So it's like, it's using magical things and maybe imbued with different forms of magic when under construction, and the more powerful these magic properties, or the magic imbued, or the more contradictory, or the more out there the construction materials are, even the more powerful the sword, or anything is really, because you got the ropes is the main thing for that. So that's all my sword talk. That's all my sword and weapon talk. There's two other magical items I want to talk about. One of them is because, it's a solid magical item. And one of them is probably something you've never thought of before. Welcome after that short interlude that you had and I had. We both had a short interlude this time. It wasn't just me pressing pause and pressing play again. It was me, I actually had an interlude. Not long, just sang again. So, Annabeth Yankees cap. Yes, we're going to talk about Annabeth's cap because it's a very important piece of Percy Jackson lore. So we're going to talk about it. So it was given to her by Athena. It loses magic during the events of Who, after the Minerva argument. It regains its magic during the events of Demigod and Magicians, when it is returned to Athena, specifically Annabeth's first book, like the Staff of Cerberus or whatever. So she's actually got it back now. If you've never read Demigods and Magicians, she's technically both got her dagger and her hat back. Questionable. Oh yeah, hats. So other hats and helmets like this already exist in mythology. You got Hades' Helm of Darkness, which is the main one mentioned in the books. So if you don't know about that one, you don't read the books very well. It's in the first book, guys. Come on. Perseus, the original Perseus, is also gifted one from Athena in some versions of the Gorgon myths. It is also apparently gifted to him along with some winged boots. And if you think back to the Lightning Thief, I just thought of this today. Think back to the Lightning Thief and when they're fighting Medusa. What are the two magical things besides Riptide that are used to defeat Medusa? A magical hat and some winged boots. Some fun little things. It's probably nothing. Anyway, fun little things. Annabeth's cap. In Boo, we see Lou Ellen do a version of invisible magic. She's trying to hide a group of 4 by the time we catch her, and they're doing the thing. It's not fully like invisible magic, but it is hiding behind the mist. And I feel like you could say that the hat is most likely doing a similar thing, similar sort of magic. So we know this invisible magic exists in the Greek world. Lou Ellen, our god to start with, she's also hiding more people than just one. So it is probably a focused piece of magic where hat magic, you're now invisible, and it's probably a bit stronger and more focused to the wearer rather than Llewellyn trying to make a bubble of invisible. So it doesn't work fully when you're expecting someone to be there. Now, this magical item, probably none of you have ever thought about too hard, but I have every day. Mr. Chirione's wheelchair. Yeah, right? Look, think about it. He's a horse. He chucks his horse hearth into a wheelchair. Now, picture how big a horse is. A full-sized riding horse, racing horse-sized horse. No Shetlands here, thank you very much, or miniatures. Full-sized racing horse-sized horse. And then think of how big a wheelchair is. And go, you see? Even if you went and broke his back to get in there, it's still pretty much like he broke every part of his legs and dislocated his legs and broke his back. Just chuck his bum in there. His bum being his horse half. It still really does not make sense how they could fit in there. So here is the theory for Chirione's, I'm now calling him Chirione, wheelchair, that it is an access point into some form of pocket dimension. I know you're going to be like, Owen, seriously, we're talking about pocket dimensions in Percy Jackson. This is a world of magic and myths. No one's science in here. I've already used science. You already used science today. No more science, thank you. Well, I think you'll find that these pocket dimensions do exist in the Voidinverse. The lockers in the Kane Chronicles. You haven't read the Kane Chronicles? Carter and Sadie use the Daunt, they can shove their hand into the Daunt, the magical veil, and pull out their weapons or whatever they have stored in there. Most of the time it's their weapons, their staff and their wand and whatever. But what if a similar thing is occurring in Chiron's wheelchair, Chirone's wheelchair? That he lowers his second half in, he goes zoop, 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 and what he's doing is he's shoving his bum into a pocket dimension similar to the way that the lockers work. but maybe a bit more Greekified. And when he's in the chair, like, instead of having to focus, like you see Sadie have to do, specifically because she's not the best, she's worse at it than Carter. Instead of having to focus on it, the chair is kind of like an automatic point. Like, he doesn't have to focus on it, so it doesn't accidentally close on him, cutting his body in half, which would be funny, sad, depends on your views on Chiron. Yes, and it probably also helps keep his energy levels up because he doesn't have to use energy to keep the hole open. It is being kept open by the chair. And then he just like chucks some plastic legs in front of him or whatever, standard fake leg procedure. It's a bit like a door, apparently. I've always said like a door, standard fake leg procedure. He's got his top half, which looks human anyway, doesn't need to hide anything. That is Chiron's wheelchair. That is Animat's cap, and that is the dormant disguised versions of weapons. That is what we have to talk about in today's episode. That is today's episode. Thank you for indulging this theory. If you have any comment on this theory or theories of your own that you want me to discuss, email them through to through.t.mist@gmail.com. So you can always follow the Instagrams @through_mist and DM me there. Make sure you follow the podcast, like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, whatever you have to do on whatever platform you're listening on to get the podcast out there. I've been Owen, and come back next time as we try to see through the mist. I do know that time of unit. Once you get up, go, go, goggy, oh, yo.